All right, what's up YouTube? What's going on? So we're back in Pasco County today at a site that I started just about 3 years ago. I actually had to pull it up in my QuickBook records this morning to see when we started this job, and it was 8 of 2016. So, you know, just about 3 years ago, we started working here on this site, and we're actually just north of my farm and a little bit west, which is kind of unusual. Typically speaking, most of the work I do is further south. It's never this close to home. So this was a really exciting project for us. And Penny and Dan, the homeowners that live here, are just awesome. And they found me through my drone video, one of my original YouTube videos about 4 years ago. And they said, I want to come see the farm. I want to come see the farm. And I said, well, listen, I do farm tours. And Dan was actually working on a crab boat at the time in Alaska, and Penny came out by herself and made it about 15 minutes into the tour, and we got these crazy thunderstorms. She had to go home. She dropped me an email and she said, listen, I want my place to look like yours. We have some empty land next to our house. So they have a 1 acre lot here, and what their property looked like when I got here is almost exactly like what I'm standing on now. If you look around me, there's lots of ragweed, there's lots of scrub oak. If you look at the ground, it's pure sand. You know, this is very typical for Florida, you know, crappy soil, exposed, damaged, you know, where the only thing coming in are pioneer species, indicator species, all of that organic matter washed off the land every time we had a hard rain. So what made this site very unique compared to any other site I ever worked on was we have some topography. And not only do we have topography, we have south-facing topography. So this slope that we have been working on here and improving is all south-face. And what I'll tell you is if you're looking for land, the best land to find is land that is south-facing. That's going to give you the best light exposure. That's going to give you the best, you know, protection from those northern winds. And it kind of gives you a little bit of room to play with the water flowing across the land, slow it down, and penetrate it into the landscape. So let's head over there. I'm going to show you what we're talking about. All right, guys, so we're in Central Florida and we're not trying to create a beach. I know you saw that lousy beach sand, and you know, over here next to me, this is the lot. This is where Dan and Penny live. They have a ½ acre on their home site, and they have a ½ acre right next to their house, and that's what they have started to develop. So this bottom half of the property is the lower ½ acre, and you can see here on the east side of the property, we have a large bamboo windbreak. I got you some color drone footage of that. We'll kind of roll over it as we get closer. But you know what I noticed here when I first pulled up, not only was it exactly like that, there was the, you know, the sand, mostly invasive species, you know, lots of ragweed, lots of grapevine, lots of sand spurs. So just as I was sitting over there filming, I picked sand spurs off me just after I was done. We have no sand spurs here now. The other big thing that I noticed was every time it would rain, you know, they said that they have all these leaves, they get all this organic matter, you know, they have all of these oaks. All of that organic matter that was building up underneath the trees would just literally wash off and down to the bottom of the ditch. So when I first pulled up here, you know, this was a combination of sand and organic matter. So all of that organic matter off of the hill during every heavy rain event would wash down to the bottom. We were just getting erosion, erosion, erosion. Nature wasn't, you know, providing quick enough those ground covers, those indicator species to lock that forest floor together. So, you know, with the food forest, with permaculture, we're planting the plants that we want, you know, to mimic a forest. And I can tell you that Dan and Penny did not want a lot of food. They were actually really interested in feeding the insects, feeding the butterflies, feeding the bees. They wanted some for themselves, and they're getting lots for themselves, but they were really interested in feeding those hummingbirds, the butterflies, you know, sitting on the back porch, and really just enjoying nature. All right, so about 3 years ago when we started this project, we started on the left side of the property, and we're about in the middle right now where I'm standing on the property line. So we did that half, and then we did this half. This half over here is literally mostly, I think, 90% for beneficial insects, natives, bamboos, things along those lines, ornamental aspects. And as we step back over here, you know, this is where we have more of the fruit trees. This is where we actually got to put some swales in. So you can see we've got a pile of mulch here behind me. So that is the key to success in all of our systems that we plant here in Florida. Dan and Penny, you know, they reached out to the local tree services before they know it. You know, we had 10 or 15 loads showing up a week here to put in on this install, so we didn't actually have to bring in a lot of that mulch. So we are definitely going to link the first video here in the description down below. You guys have to see the before and afters. We got a little bit of that cut into the first video. When we first got here, I mean, I remember busting these fences open. It was when I originally just had a John Deere tractor. You know, since we've kind of stepped up our game a little bit, we've got a couple small wheel loaders. We've got a track machine now. We've actually traded in that farm tractor for more of a kind of a construction use tractor that works a lot better for our needs. So our two main ground covers here on this site are both nitrogen fixers, one being native, sunshine mimosa, Mimosa strigolosa, and the other one being perennial peanut. This is the EcoTurf variety, and the peanut actually has an edible flower, has a great garnish, goes nice on a salad. Not much flavor to it, but a little bit of sweetness. And then obviously the mimosa, great for bringing in beneficial insects and butterflies. So by having these ground covers here on the ground, it's actually cutting down on the amount of fertilizer we need here on this site. You know, these plants have a symbiotic relationship with soil-borne bacteria. They can take the air we breathe and turn it into nitrogen in the soil. So, you know, game changer. We're covering the soil. This is like the skin. You know, we're not getting that overland flow here anymore. Let's step up in and I'll show you a little bit more what's growing on here. Some bottle brush. This one was actually, I think, maybe this was planted by us or the homeowners about a year after we started the install. So lots of Simpson stopper. That's a native. Lots of along the front over here. There was bees on it right now. There's butterflies on it. Actually, let's step over. You guys can see the action. So just looking up here on this, I mean, I wish you guys had scratch and sniff and you could smell this sweet almond, but it's absolutely unbelievable, very strong. My neighbors actually think I spray Febreze. And up here towards the top, this is already covered in bees and beneficial insects. I've seen butterflies coming in here, and we're only, you know, 8:45 in the morning, so this is already starting to do its job in attracting some of those beneficials to the site. So this is one of the only sites I've actually been able to play with swales, and you know, we've put probably about 15 swales here on this site, and they've actually worked fairly well. You know, we had enough slope to slow that water down. We filled those swales with mulch, and I'm going to show you what the soil looks like in some of those swales and show you what we've planted on them. So over here we have a grafted loquat. These do really well in the Central Florida region. Lots of Turk's cap hibiscus, delicious edible flower. We have a red variety, a white variety, a pink variety. Extra sweet, delicious on a salad. That was way better than the perennial peanut you just ate. We've got Suriname cherries here. We've got more grafted loquats. We've got Pakistani mulberries. And then on the top of the swale, we've got lots of Fakahatchee grass. So the Fakahatchee grass is a source of carbon silica. It's also just growing your mulch. They cut those grasses back and just lay them around the fruit trees. As we move our way up the hill, we've got things like figs in here. We've got things like peaches in here. We've got things like plums in here. So this is a fairly full sun area that I'm standing in. The sun's not quite up all the way yet, but this is south facing. There's not a lot of overhead trees. There's some oaks over here in this area. So these gaps in between the oaks and the bamboo, you know, we've put things that really need full sun, like figs, like peaches. It looks like they have some roselle planted here on the site. This is a you know, perennial further south, annual here in Central Florida, edible leaves, and then the calyx can be used for teas. Very nice tasting also. More figs. Oh, looks like we got some figs. Oh, Dan and Penny, I did not mean to take your fig. I believe this is the Ishka variety, judging by it being ripe like this green. This is Ishka. You want to try this, Lennon?
Sure do.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh, hold up. Gotta share.
It's really good.
You ever had a fresh fig?
No, this is the first time.
First time? Whoa! All right. So we're over on the west property line, and along this west line, we've got lots of things to bring in beneficials. We've got more of the sweet almond, and we've got some of this Caliandra. And the Caliandra is another one that's nitrogen fixing and just has a magnificent flower. Absolutely gorgeous. And brings in butterflies and beneficial insects also. Next to that, we actually have some clumping bamboo. So all the way up and down the side of this property line, we have different varieties of bamboo, and that was something they already had a couple of varieties planted when I got here. I mean, they had a Dendrocalamus asper, an old hammy eye, a graceful, and now we've added about 25 more varieties, and bamboo gets a bad reputation because of these running varieties. Just so you guys know, we only plant clumping varieties, and by clumping that means they're never going to extend a certain footprint. They're never going to run past a certain distance. Now some of these clumpers can get to be 15 foot wide, but for the most part 8 to 12 foot clumping bamboo and it's done. A mid-level bush, I guess you could say, that we brought in, or ground cover kind of to cover the ground here, is scorpion tail. So this is very similar to the blue porterweed as far as the height it grows in the landscape, and it gets to be about 2 foot tall, maybe 3 foot tall, and it kind of makes a little bit of a tail. That's where it got its name, scorpion tail. So you can see has a little bit of a curl to it, and it gets these little white flowers on there. So another great one, native, brings in the butterflies, brings in the beneficial insects, and you can see we've got the blue bamboo. That's the one with the silver trunk on it, the chungi eye. You know, there's all different varieties as we work our way up here into the landscape. There's pineapple guavas over there I missed as we were walking by. There's all types of firebush. Actually, here's another one of the pineapple guavas. There's no flowers on it at this time. And something I'm going to point out to you guys is, you know, we are in fall. It's October. Things are definitely not in their prime out here right now. Like these ground covers, these mimosas, these peanuts got to be like the most beautiful dense mats I've ever seen. In spring, towards fall, they start to get a little bit more sparse. So like I said, we started this project a couple of years ago. We used a ton of mulch here. Dan, the homeowner, you know, they've really taken this site upon themselves. You know, I really like to, you know, get these projects where the clients kind of, you know, they get a grip. They get an understanding for it. They kind of take it and run. You know, they're off of the need of green dreams to come back. So I haven't had to come back here for a lot of follow-ups. We came back to start another extension of the food forest, but for the most part, you know, this was being maintained by them. You know, they don't do a ton of work out here, and we're going to actually get them to talk about, you know, how much time they spend in it, why they've done this, why they love it type of things. But what I was getting to was the neighbor had a tractor for sale and Dan snatched it up. So Dan's moving mulch here himself. So as we walk around the site, you're going to see some mulch in some different spots. It's not completely done spread yet, but has been laid and moved by Dan and his tractor. So here's some of that mulch right here that Dan started to move around with this tractor, and he just has a regular Kubota farm tractor, and they dump it around in different places and they come out and hand rake it as it's ready to spread. So they're constantly adding mulch to the paths, but they're not really adding mulch to the planted areas. These already have a living ground cover. Combination, like I said, peanut, mimosa, I see scorpion tail, everything's coming in really thick and looks nice around here. Here's another big sweet almond. I believe this is a native Paw Paw. Standard red firebush. I know you guys just saw my firebush video. Lots of Suriname cherries, lots of Cattleya guavas. Both of those are fairly cold hardy here for Central Florida. They don't really get damaged. Here's some more of the Caliandra. Really beautiful flowers on this one. I see some of the native blue beautyberry. We've got some taro here. We've got some galangal. So this is the Thai ginger, very common one. Lots of bananas. So I'm going to show you guys some racks here in a second. As we're getting in here, we've got more sweet almond, more of the Caliandra, and then up against the property line, we've got native nitrogen fixing bushes. So this would be more of a mid or higher level bush, and this is native Wax Myrtle, and this is another one that fixes nitrogen. So this is like planting fertilizer. You know, by planting a certain amount of these plants in the landscape, it's going to completely eliminate our needs for external fertilizers. And then right here behind Mr. Lennon, we've got a black bamboo. So here's one of the black varieties. Really beautiful, dark cane. And I believe this is one that probably got damaged a little bit 2 years ago in our super hard freeze event, but has come back and recovered fine. So let's see what else we got going on over here. All right, so over here on my right side, we've got a Brogdon Avocado. This is the cold hardy avocado to Central Florida. We've got a Brooksville Guava. This is a naturalized variety we found up on the Brooksville Ridge. These are fairly cold hardy. Not sure if it's the pink or white variety, probably just a seedling that we had collected and selected. Black Suriname cherries, firebush, another guava. I believe one of these is the Takal, the pink variety. So we got two different varieties of the guava in here. And one of my favorites, we just did a video on this one, is that Katuk. You can see the Katuk is right now covered in the beautiful flowers, and you know, it makes edible leaves, edible flowers, super nutritious. Link in the description for this one too. Oh, I see some bananas. So over here on this side, we've got banana, avocado, banana. There's one of those little racks, and you know, Dan and Penny told me that one of the only things they have not had a lack of here was definitely bananas. So they've been pumping out bananas. I was just talking to my guys the other day, and I think my place probably pumps out about a rack a week this time of year. I'm not sure if they're quite there yet, but you know, that's what you could expect when you have a large planting. Here's another one of these cold hardy avocados. And here's a really beautiful variety of bamboo. I don't even think my canes are getting this big. And you know, I think some of the game changers here is, you know, Dan and Penny, when we put the system in, we installed micro irrigation. So there's like, you know, 10 zones of micro irrigation out here. I think they're running it about twice a week. And you know, some things, like I'm getting a ton more starfruit than they're getting. And I was talking with Dan about it this morning, and you know, certain plants, they like stress. You know, there's even people that talk about smacking trees with the baseball bat. So, you know, by letting the tree stress out a little bit actually causes it to fruit. So I don't know if my star fruits are fruiting a lot heavier because of the the lack of water. I can tell you, they said since they've cut down the water, all of a sudden they're flowering. So that is kind of making sense, and I'm thinking that's what's going on here. Oh, I see some persimmons, but we got to go up here first. Come on. Whoa, 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 whoa. Looks like we got a Thai variety of banana here. Probably the Namwa, one of my favorite varieties. You can see this one has a pretty decent sized rack for Central Florida too. I'll take that. Let's see what else. Oh, so over here on this side, we've got Passiflora edulis. We grow the passion fruits up the trees, and by growing them up the trees like this, they can actually just fall out when they're ripe, and it's kind of like raining passion fruit. They have a really thick, leathery skin on them, so when they hit the ground, they're not going to break unless they're hitting concrete or something like that. And this is that passion fruit vine, kind of just starting to take off, grow up the tree. And let's see what's going on over here on this swale. So up here on this upper swale, I can tell you I'm already spotting a longan. I'm already spotting an avocado. I'm already spotting a persimmon. So a couple of different fruit trees up here. And as you can see, I think this is a great spot for a demonstration of that swale. So when we're digging that swale is on contour or on a level line in the landscape. All that soil that comes out goes on the bottom side of the swale. That's where you would typically plant your trees. So in really dry areas, swales are a tree growing system without irrigation, because when it rains, that water goes into the swale, feeds the tree, penetrates the soil profile, and stays on the land a lot longer instead of giving us that overland flow and putting that organic matter down in the street. So it's a real game changer. Getting down here into the swale, you'll see there's some cranberry hibiscus that's probably volunteered itself a little bit. And I just wanted to kind of get down here real quick and see what the soil looked like. I mean, when I first started here, this place was literally pure sugar sand. It's been 3 years now, and everything that I'm digging into is just pure worm castings as I speak. And I'm 12 inches into the soil, or not 12 inches, probably about 6 inches into the soil. I'm gonna go a little bit further. Oh, wow. So it just keeps getting better and better. Oh, I see sand. So I'm about 8 to 10 inches down. And it's not sand like it was out there by the street. It's not white sand, it's actually gray sand. So it's kind of changing consistency a little bit. And then you can see there's a little bit of sand in there, but mostly, gray sand, brown sand, organic matter. So, look how deep my hand was down in there. That's how far I had to go to hit the sand. So like I said, before I got here, this whole site looked like a beach. So we've really started to build up the soil life here, the soil biology. And, even though Dan and Penny are growing 30 different types of fruit trees, 10 different types of bananas, all different types of pollinator plants, the number one thing that we are actually building and growing out here is soil. That's our main focus. So we're in the center of kind of the property right now, where we ended on phase 1 on some of those swales. And behind me here, we've got a Fuyu Persimmon, and Asian persimmons are probably some of the best things to plant here in Central Florida. They're super cold hardy, they're delicious. I kind of like to look at them as like a fall mango, especially when we talk about the astringent varieties, the soft varieties like the Seijo. Just unbelievable. This Fuyu one can actually be eaten hard, and they're getting ready to drop their leaves. There's also some kind of caterpillar or something kind of dropping out of the air, eating the leaves right now. So they're a little bit of rough shape, but there is some fruits kind of ready to harvest. And like I said, these ones could be eaten hard. So right next to us here, we've got some different varieties of banana. And as you can see, as they prune the bananas, they just chop and drop. They lay those leaves right back down on the ground, and best thing to feed a banana is a banana. Second best thing to feed a banana is ash. Third best thing to feed a banana is urine. So you cannot overfeed a banana. I know I've stressed that a couple of times to you guys, and that's really important. So as we move a little bit further down the swale, Dan and Penny told me that they just cut back on the irrigation. And cutting back on the irrigation, all of a sudden this starfruit tree is just completely covered in flowers. So they had that same extreme cold event here 2 years ago. Everything was smoked. It kind of looked like a flamethrower came through. This also recovered for them above the graft. Another variety of banana, another flowering starfruit, and native coffee. So lots of native coffee. So another great one here for the landscape, brings in the beneficials and the predatory insects. I do have a Patreon. This editing, this film equipment, this traveling, this all costs a lot of money. I want to grow this film team. So if you have an extra $1 a month, if you have an extra $5 a month, no matter what that amount might be, we really appreciate it. Please join the Patreon. Please help to support that. That's going to fund those traveling trips. That's gonna fund more videos. I highly appreciate it. So Dan and Penny got a disco ball in the food forest, and they say that that really helps with keeping the birds off of the fruiting trees as they start to come in. I've seen lots of people hang CDs and stuff from trees, so neat element to have out here. You know, we're really just partying in the food forest when you got one of these. Right here behind me, we've got a spiraling ginger, and this is a new red variety. I've got a couple of these growing. I think I gave this to Dan and Penny, I'm not sure, but this also has an edible side flower. So beautiful spiraling ginger for the landscape. Also evergreen, native saw palmettos. Those were already here when we got here. And lots of bananas again. You guys, look at the size of these bananas. So giving these guys a little bit of water makes all the difference in the world. I mean, the trunk on this thing is like this big around. I mean, this is a dwarf variety. So something I'm gonna tell you guys, for Central Florida, I highly suggest dwarf varieties. They don't have to get as tall before making that fruit. Typically speaking, you know, if we have a big banana like an Orinoco or a Saba, you know, something that's gonna get to be 10 foot tall, they have to get, you know, that much bigger before they can set that flower. So the shorter varieties, they seem to fruit quicker. I highly suggest them for more of this Central Florida region. Before I walk by it, this was here. We actually left this one and worked around it. This is a native Paw Paw. Not sure the exact species of it. I haven't actually seen it fruit yet. I've just planted some of these at my farm, but this is a native Paw Paw, and I'd like to see some more work done with these in Central Florida. I haven't had a lot of experience with them myself yet. I think it's more of a northern species. We're kind of maybe on the edge of Paw Paw doing well. So cutting down over here, we've got some more Wax Myrtle. We've got some more of the black Suriname cherries. We've got some more of the spiraling gingers. And then over here behind me, this is the lowest swale on the property, and that is all dwarf fern leaf. So that variety of bamboo is only gonna get to be about 15 foot tall. It's never gonna impede on the power lines. It's gonna be a shorter variety, actually a hedging variety. So a lot of people like to take a hedge trimmer to that bamboo and kind of keep it squared up. Kind of cutting down along this edge here. We've got some more of the firebush. We've got some more of the galangal, and lots of pineapples throughout. So that was another thing that they've been very successful here with, is pineapples. They seem to do really good in the dappled light, the understory. So I think there's a couple over here. Looks like they've been kind of fighting the rabbits, maybe raccoons on those a little bit, but there is a small pineapple. This one's got some fresh mulch around it, so I have a feeling it was probably just replanted. But here we go. Little pineapple in the landscape. Taro in here, native beautyberry. As you can see over here, turmeric going to sleep. The turmeric has an absolutely breathtaking, beautiful flower. Depending on how long it's been in the ground, you would typically harvest turmeric at the end of 2 years, or replant them, you know, every other year. So just depending on where you're located. So turmeric's a really easy one to grow. Just make sure you get the roots from a source that's like organic or non-radiated or something, so it does actually take off for you. So let's check out what's growing on over here. And something I want to point out, I almost stepped on this. This is another native nitrogen fixer not planted. This is erythrina or coral green, and this one makes little or long red flowers. This is another one the hummingbirds like. It flowers in the shade. We're leaving this here because it's going to be pretty, it's going to grow up, and it's native. It wants to be here. So there's some of these things that want to be here that are native, we're definitely leaving alone. Some of the things that we don't like the ragweed and the smilax, we are removing. We're kind of slowly starting to thin them out. So I'm seeing lots of roselle here. I'm seeing some more peaches. Let's peek down here to the bottom swale. And this swale is just completely covered in mimosa again. There's a large Turk's cap hibiscus. We've got a peach, we've got a plum, and we've got roselle. And here's a little bit of a better idea of what that calyx looks like, but this is still a really, really small one. They get much larger than this. So that would be the calyx that you would make the tea out of. So if you go to like Publix or any grocery store and you see hibiscus tea or zinger tea, this is actually what it's coming from. So as we step up in here into the landscape, you're gonna see lots of chaste trees or vitex. This is a really nice one for bringing in beneficials, also highly medicinal, beautiful tree in the landscape, and it flowers almost all year long. So, you know, here we are in Central Florida and everybody's planting crepe myrtles. They flower for like 1 month out of the year. They look crappy for like 6 months out of the year, where this, yes, it could lose its leaves in the wintertime. The most it's going to look crappy for is maybe 30 to 45 days. Otherwise, the rest of the year, it's lush, it's flowering, it's beautiful. So those are the kind of plants that we look for in the landscape. So we're down by the road on the kind of the start of the phase 2 area, and we left lots of wide paths here on this site. Dan and Penny have a golf cart also. They wanted to be able to come out here and drive around through here. They have some different seating areas in here. I mean, this is kind of like their own personal botanical gardens. So they are growing a little bit of Tithonia, or Mexican sunflower, you know, this is your fertilizer. A little bit of chop and drop, not a ton of this. They didn't want a ton of maintenance. You know, they've already got enough firebush and wax myrtle and other things to prune. So we don't have the same ratio maybe we would do on a production farm, but they do have enough to kind of feed the bananas. This is actually lemongrass, looks very similar to Fakahatchee grass, but this is the lemongrass that we have planted down in this area. And I think we planted probably 3 or 4 different clumping grasses here, and I planted a really interesting one that I want to start using more on jobs, that I have started to use more on jobs that I haven't really featured for you guys yet, and I'm going to show you. It's right over here. Guys, we're down at the bottom kind of 20-25 foot of the yard in the phase 2 section, and this area is just a buffer. The whole idea being that this stuff will grow up to be about 15 foot tall. We're at the bottom side of the hill. It's just going to give them privacy, so when they're sitting up there at the top, you know, this area is just covered in bees and butterflies. And you know, if there's somebody walking by, they can't just see you up there sitting on your porch. So native elderberry, we used a lot of that down here in this area. Native Simpson stopper, we used a lot of that down here in this area. I mentioned that we used a couple of things we don't use a lot. These are some salvias, native salvias, which are common. We use those a lot, but something we don't use a lot of or talk about a lot would be this grass. So this grass here behind me is vetiver grass, and this isn't native. This has become really popular with Echo down in South Florida, and this is a great clumping grass for a source of that silica carbon and the chop and drop. This one, the roots go exceptionally deep on, like I'm talking like 15 foot down into the soil profile. So talk about stopping erosion. You know, clumping grasses are great for stopping erosion, and vetiver grass, I'm really blown away. I think this is the first time I've seen this actually flower. So we prune it back so often at my place, it never really gets to that stage, but this one is flowering here in the landscape. I'm seeing more salvias. Here's a nice pretty one for you too. This is another native, and this is called coral honeysuckle, and this one's eventually going to take over that fence down there. This is another one with those long tassel flowers, great for bringing in the hummingbirds. Have a little bit of a sweetness to it. I know I've sucked the inside out of that. I'm not really sure if you're supposed to eat that flower, but it wasn't too bad. Here's another one of those Vitex, and I believe this is the native blueberry. So kind of has a silvery color to the leaves, and you can see these little berries that kind of start to form on here. I do see a couple of olives in here. This is an Arbequina olive, and like I said, the whole idea here, this isn't supposed to be a really manicured area. All right, we're at the tail end of the buffer over here, and there's lots of Turk's cap hibiscus, there's lots of caliandra, there's lots of wax myrtle, kind of just interplanted mixed species planting in here. I also see some galangal, there's some spiraling ginger, so lots of different species over here. And then we got a little seating area. That's the most important part. This way you can actually sit out here and enjoy the space. So looks like Dan and Penny got a couple of Adirondacks chairs set up over here. They might need to be cleaned. Probably haven't been out here in a minute. But you know, this whole idea to come out here and enjoy your yard, you know, they're kind of in this closed in room right now. Like, so before we planted anything here, if you were sitting here, you know, the neighbor's gonna come by and be like, oh, hey guys, how you doing? You know, now they can actually sit here and have privacy, you know, enjoy the sounds of the wind traveling through the bamboo. This bamboo over here on this side is all graceful bamboo. This is gonna get to be about 25, 30 foot tall. And then once we get over here to this side, we've got a combination of old hams, which is probably one of my favorite clumpers. This is a 45 foot variety, and I believe this is Angel Mist or Chungy Eye. I'm not positive on that one. I don't see a tag down here, so I am kind of just guessing by looking at the bamboo. But you know, this beautiful bamboo wall kind of created this closed in space, and we actually have another access point over here. The idea was to cut a gate in so they could come in with the golf cart on this side, come in the golf cart over there, or come in from the top of the farm. So let's head up top and show you what's going on. So we're kind of sitting in the central area of phase 2, and you know, there was ideas of putting a cheeky hut, a destination point, a pond, a couple of different elements out here in the landscape. So that could be something that's added down the road. They haven't done that yet. So a lot of this central area here, we cleared, we got the invasives up from the roots, and we just densely mulched. And you can see over here behind me, they've started to really bring that mulch in even thicker. So I have seen a little bit of weed penetration here right where I'm standing, a little bit of nutsedge, a little torpedo grass. By putting that mulch back down over this 12 inches, 16 inches, that will stop and suppress those weeds from coming back up. This way you don't have that long-term problem. We left all the saw palmettos, we left all the oak trees. Really the only thing we did with the oaks was center prune or take out some of that dead wood. You know, this way, if we get the heavy windstorm and we have those fruit trees planted underneath, you know, we don't have branches dropping down, breaking bananas, breaking star fruit, although you always do get some dropping branches. So you could see here, just on my left side, you know, that's the property line. That was the original first lot. This is the second lot. That was the gate kind of entering. Here's the two large clumping bamboos, two different varieties. And as you kind of come down over this way, that's that first swale. And you can see that first swale is completely filled up with mulch. You know, we noticed that the water wasn't sitting in the swales here. We'd get those heavy rain events, and it wasn't like I could bring a kayak over and float through the swale. You know, so we added a lot of mulch to a couple of these swales as maybe like a test, you know, to see if by putting the mulch in there, if it would act as this giant sponge, hold on to water a little bit longer for us, retain water and moisture, you know, for that long term. So getting back over to this side, we've got the butterflies over here working on the firebush. And just down below that, we've got a ground cover of longevity spinach. And I'm not sure if they eat this a lot, but this makes a beautiful ground cover. It's highly medicinal, edible raw or cooked. Probably prefer cooked because it is so strong. I mean, you can taste the minerals, you can taste the nutrients. It's not quite as strong as moringa, but it is strong. I mean, I've heard that this is touted to have 1 million different medicinal properties in Southeast Asia. So grows like a weed, thrives on neglect. Those are the types of plants we're looking for. So as you've noticed, there has been no annuals whatsoever out here in this garden, but there is a small annual section up behind their house. They had that already started, and I think they've elaborated on it since this garden area has started here. So coming up on some of the original bamboos that were here when we showed up that I didn't plant. And bamboo is just so magnificent and so breathtaking. I mean, I think it's just like literally one of the most useful plants in the world. You know, from a soundscape to a windbreak to a building material for stakes, it doesn't matter. So this variety right here, I believe, is multiplex. Then over here on this side, we've got the graceful. So this is an established clump of graceful bamboo. And this one is probably one of the most aesthetic, beautiful varieties, in my opinion, that you can grow here in Central Florida. And that's because the bottom is so clean. Like, they didn't prune off the side branches. You know, this is all the way clean, all the way down to the bottom. Really, really pretty variety. Tight clumper too, as it establishes. I mean, you can barely get a hand into this. So let's step up into the garden and see if we can find Dan and Penny. So there's a camellia garden over here on my left side. That was here. We actually did a little bit of pruning on those. This is an old hammy bamboo, and then behind the old hams is that Dendrocalamus asper, which is not supposed to be growing here, but comes back every year from the roots. And if you guys look over my right shoulder here, that's the annual garden area. There's also some pigeon houses here. I don't know if I mentioned this, but we're kind of in the pigeon district of Pasco County. So a lot of people in this area raise and race pigeons. I guess it's a really popular thing. I didn't even know there was a such thing as a pigeon district in Central Pasco until we started this job. So got Dan and Penny over here. We're gonna get them to talk about this project a little bit, what inspired them and what they got, why they got going here. So hold on. So you guys are the crazy ones with the big garden, huh?
Yeah. So pretty farm.
Yeah. So tell us, I mean, what got you doing this? How'd you get inspired? Come on.
I saw a Facebook post for Peter's tour of his yard a couple years ago, probably 4 years now. And I walked through the gate and I was blown away, and I came home and I said, we want to do this. So we started on our sandy lot covered with vines and thorn vines and grapevines, and we started clearing and digging and mulching, and now you see the results.
So now you guys got a golf cart, you got a tractor.
Yep.
Yeah. What kind of abundance is coming out of this place?
Oh, bananas. Bananas. I had to get a dehydrator. We had so many bananas. We love banana chips.
So far we haven't really got, we've got a little, you saw the persimmons, and we got a few passion fruit finally. The first year I think we had a bad freeze, and that, you know, knocked us back. But
we did get star fruit one year. We got peaches. We've had the Suriname cherries.
Plums.
We've had plums.
Figs.
Figs.
Cattleya guava.
We've had a couple guavas, little tiny ones, but
mulberries. We
mulberry,
got a few
lots
of
of
those.
mulberries.
Yeah.
We perfected the mulberry muffin recipe.
So
Yeah.
for people watching, like, how much time, how much effort do you guys put into this? Like, what's involved with the maintenance? Are you out here all day, every day? I mean, how often are you in the garden?
When it's hot, we come out early in the morning, do weeding and just, you know, general maintenance, and
It's kind of sporadic.
Yeah.
You know, we work pretty hard for, you know, a few days a month, and then, you know, as we're cruising around, we'll pick a few weeds or whatever. And we're trying to mulch everything.
I saw that, yeah.
we've got
So
a
it
couple.
needs to be raked down, and we're
We got
getting
a-
more mulch.
So other than the mulch, do you have any tips, or has there been any kind of crazy challenges out here you guys want to share?
Well, we make our own compost. Oh, the other thing we have that we're lucky is because we're in this pigeon flying neighborhood is a lot of and we try to find the non-smoking pigeon flyers. They clean their pigeon lofts out and their poop. They put it right back in the feed bags. So on trash day, you can cruise the neighborhood in the golf cart and get a couple bags of poop, and we, incorporate that in.
Well, we don't use it on the fruit trees. We just use it on the bamboo. It really, in fact, that big bamboo, I put a bunch of it on that one, and it seems to do better than even the organic fertilizer or anything. It really makes the bamboo grow good.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank
do you know how I end my videos? Do we know how we do this? You guys haven't watched any of my videos? Come on.
Keep growing.
Pound dirt.
Well, I guess we haven't.
Well, you gotta punch this.
Okay.
All right, guys. So I thought Dan and Penny would be tapped out, and you heard them. They still want to keep going. They're going to move the pigeon coops out of here. They're expanding upon this operation. Kind of thought maybe they had their hands full, but obviously not. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit that like button, pound that bell to stay notified if you're not subscribed yet, and most importantly, pound dirt.